Whilst 2024 still has potential to reach the heights of all-timer 2023 in terms of amazing games, this year has had its fair share of disappointment too. A lot of disappointment centers on the anticipation caused by pre-release hype not matching the finished product, especially if the game has been long awaited or is coming from an esteemed studio. Sometimes though, the game just isn't good no matter who made it or what we thought before it came out. Here's 15 such disappointments, sorted from bad to worst. Bodycam. Firstly, kudos to the young developers behind Bodycam, an FPS dubbed the first ultra-realistic multiplayer shooter to utilize the growing Bodycam gimmick. The game does look incredible. Whether fisheye shooters gain significant popularity remains to be seen, but it certainly adds an immersiveness not yet realized in other shooters. However, the novelty wears off quickly. Aiming down sights is clunky, game modes are light, guns unwieldy, sounds are distorted. In short, there's still a way to go for this early access game. Crown Wars: The Black Prince.
Hit the mark.
Yes?
Some say it's a medieval XCOM, others say it's more akin to War Tales. One thing is for sure, a lot of gamers were waiting for Crown Wars: The Black Prince, but so far it's not delivering on its anticipation. Frustratingly sluggish unit maneuvers, unforeseen difficulty spikes, and unfathomable mission timers lead player grievances. There's a lot of promise here though, so with time and feedback, Crown Wars: The Black Prince can become more enjoyable. In its current guise and steep price point, there'll be more swerving than strategy RPG than diving in. No Rest for the Wicked. There's an inevitable expectation on Moon Studios to deliver another phenomenal game given the success of their Ori platformers. Not so thus far. No Rest for the Wicked marks a genre shift for the developer, an isometric action RPG blending the best and worst of Dark Souls and Diablo 4.
Too late for fairy tales.
A handful of performance and pacing issues can be ironed out for this early access game though, but the biggest sticking point that's tougher to fix is the disparate looting philosophies No Rest takes inspiration from. For example, plowing stats into weapons a la Dark Souls when better versions may drop a moment later like Diablo 4. Moon Studios should have picked one or the other, just not both. New Cycle. Another early access title on this rundown, so its inclusion might be a little premature. However, a survival city builder blending the addictiveness of Frostpunk with the complex micromanagement of Factorio is surely onto a winner. Except, much like Crown Wars: The Black Prince, difficulty spikes come unexpectedly, with losses hard to take given the complexity of the game's over-numerous management subsystems and lack of decent tutorials. Good news is these problems can be fixed, but in its current state, New Cycle is a tough recommendation. Gigantic Rampage Edition. The once free-to-play MOBA/hero shooter Gigantic has been revived 6 years after originally shutting down. Gigantic Rampage Edition is now a microtransaction-less paid game, with new heroes, modes, skins, and the like to entice players back in. However, Rampage Edition's player base is severely low, so low in fact that there are staggeringly long wait times to even play the game, and server-side latency issues scuppering those who do actually find a match. Dev support doesn't seem to be strong with this one either, leaving Gigantic's future in the balance. Foam Stars. Bubble Bath Paintballer Foam Stars has enough unique mechanics to distinguish itself from contemporary goo shooter Splatoon, but maybe if it was a little more Splatoon-alike, it'd have some longevity. Foam Stars' player base has fallen off a cliff, with the PlayStation-exclusive party shooter losing 95% of its audience just 2 months after release. Too many identikit characters, gacha-style stat progression, and uninteresting objectives meant the bubble burst far too soon for this one. Die by the Blade. A one-hit kill Bushido Blade-inspired brawler that's conceptually realized, strategically varied, and superbly presented as Die by the Blade should be a home run. It should have found its audience, but something just isn't sitting right with this one. Perhaps it's the jaunty camera, or the repetitive gameplay, or the janky blocks and parries, or the unresponsive inputs. Maybe it's a combination of, just simply put, a lot of different things. Like numerous entries on this rundown, Die by the Blade might just need more time in the oven before it's ready. There's promise here for sure, but Die by the Blade just hasn't quite made it. Outcast A New Beginning. Talk about a long time coming. Outcast A New Beginning is the sequel to a 1999 cult classic, a game which defined non-linear open worlds. This time around, the open world is back, but there's zero incentive to actually explore here, which is a crying shame given the exhilarating jetpack traversal. See, developer Appeal Studios have adopted the outdated Ubisoft approach to open worlds. Everything is signposted, and objectives are basic, mere variations on just simple fetch quests. Poor optimization, humdrum combat, and a unsatisfactory story round out a disappointing sequel. Multiverses. After nerfing the game for just over a year, player-first games have brought back multiverses back for another crack of the whip, but they really needn't have bothered here. Many of the open beta's gripes have returned, but somehow worse. Monetization is obnoxiously expensive, grinding is horrendously soul-destroying, balancing just all over the place, and the fisticuffs are even slower. To top it all off, the game runs worse than the beta due to poorly optimized netcode. WB Games hoped Multiverses would be a contender to Super Smash Bros., but on the evidence of this 2024 iteration, they've really no chance. Defiant. The genre-blending free-to-play shooter has a lot to like, to be fair. Underpinning everything is surprisingly solid combat with a decently varied arsenal. And the fact Defiant is clearly an equal parts copycat of military and hero shooter isn't necessarily a bad thing. The problem here is wild imbalance. Healing is woefully ineffective, and special abilities are drastically overpowered. The capability of character classes is uneven as well, with Splinter Cell's Echelon faction, for example, and their ability to turn invisible being incredibly unfair on other factions. Tomb Raider 1-3 Remastered. As ingenious and frustrating as you remember, Tomb Raider's remasters attempt to appease contemporary audiences with modernized controls. However, this really only sort of works. Eschewing the original tank controls and multi-input for simple maneuvers like jumping and grabbing, thumbsticks are Lara's principal mode of movement, but the camera struggles in tight confines, a major blunder given the amount of time Lara spends in claustrophobic confines, whilst the target lock-on is outdated and ineffective. Maybe toiling through Tomb Raider 1-3's original controls is actually the appeal. Alone in the Dark. Alone in the Dark's 1992 original is foundational, laced with atmospheric storytelling and satisfactory puzzles. The game's combat wasn't the primary draw, which is understandable given the limitations of the day, but for the 2024 reincarnation, it's befuddling why the lackluster combat has been maintained.
Did you bring a gun?
Yeah. You think it'll actually come to that?
No, but you might need to wave it around.
Given the 3-decade plus of game development since, either too easy or a chore, Alone in the Dark 2024 might have been better if combat wasn't featured at all. Rise of the Ronin. Team Ninja's pedigree thus far is special, as Nioh and Wolong Fallen Dynasty developers' expectations were high they'd deliver with Rise of the Ronin, their first open-world attempt. And whilst combat is suitably deep with story and settings steeped in intrigue, it's the mediocre design of this open world, a drab gray place stuffed with cookie-cutter quests. The activities here aren't engaging enough to supply a 60-hour runtime either. Skull and Bones. Runner-up in our most disappointing games of 2024 so far is, of course, Skull and Bones. Ubisoft's live service Pirate-a-thon once believed shipwrecked at the bottom of the briny sea before finally surfacing this year. Being live service, things can be changed, but given the title's experience in development hell, it seems unlikely any changes will be significant enough. Sailing is kind of boring. The world, whilst beautiful, doesn't have enough in it to plunder. Characters are definitely forgettable, story too pedestrian, the list really goes on here. After such a long wait, is Skull and Bones worth the effort? Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. It had to be this one, didn't it? Most disappointing game of the year so far is of course Rocksteady's Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. And, you know, enough has been said about this game. It's just not great. But beyond its failures, most disappointing is the fact Rocksteady were at the helm. The Arkham developers have been forced too far out of their comfort zone by Warner Brothers, pivoting to multiplayer shooting instead of the atmospheric single players they're known for. It's not their wheelhouse. With the reported $200 million loss on the game and the brutal studio cuts prevalent in the industry at present, let's hope Rocksteady aren't forced to siphon talented staff as quickly as they were as their ideas.
After all we've been through. Oh. Bet you didn't think it'd be me at the end, huh, Bets?
Are we done with your bad stand-up routine?
So, what are your thoughts on this? Go ahead and share them in the comments below. And if you like this video, please subscribe to the channel and enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon to get new video updates. We upload every day and would really appreciate your support. Thanks for watching.